From greylist to governance, board accountability under the new EU AML Regulation.
Good afternoon. First thing we'll do, let's kill all the lawyers. That's Henry VI, Shakespeare. Ironically, this famous phrase, let's kill all the lawyers, has the inverse meaning. It was said by rebellious henchmen who wanted to overthrow the rule of law. Why? Because they wanted anarchy and tyranny. This fight between governance and rule of law and anarchy and tyranny resonates in the gaming industry. And that's what I'm here to discuss with you. Gaming, as you all know, has a number of characteristics which makes it appealing for criminal networks, which are the high flow of financial monies on a cross-border basis, online gaming and online platforms, as well as the fragmented licensing approach adopted in the European bloc. That makes it exciting for criminal networks to infiltrate because it gives them volume, speed, and opacity. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have governments who see gaming as a high-risk industry. Midtwixt between the criminal organizations and the government, squeeze in the middle, is the gaming industry, keeping away from criminals and trying to ward off over-regulation. This having been said, gaming needs to remain clean, transparent, relevant. Governance today has become a key issue for all operators. Why? Because board members and company executives cannot delegate their powers. They cannot shed their obligations. They cannot shed their responsibility. European law will not allow that. In 2021, Malta was grey-listed, and that had effects beyond our shores. It was a lesson in accountability. Now we know what the repercussions are if you slack in governance. The repercussions are grave. Whereas lack of, or rather AML failure, was perceived to be simply a regulatory failure, it is now a government failure and personal responsibility for the directors. I explain. Recent EU legislation, be it in AML, in data protection, in player protection, has moved, and we have seen a veritable regulatory shift. In what manner? First and foremost, when it comes to anti-money laundering measures and good governance, directors cannot simply say, I did not know. I'm sorry, I used my best endeavors, I've got the best staff in the world, I've got the best officers in the world, I did not know that this was happening under my watch. That no longer is a defense to failures in CFT and AML. The law imposes a positive obligation on all gaming execs, on all company execs, to know. That is the key of good governance. You must know what your staff are doing. And it's important to learn that phrase, what your staff are doing and what they are up to, and never underestimate the power of stupid. You will be amazed at in what trouble your employees can get you in. On the other hand, we have seen that this responsibility of not knowing turns a dark twist when legislation has turned responsibility from the company to the board, to the gaming execs, on a personal level. So companies which are engaged in AML breaches will have its officers personally liable for the failure. And that's the second twist we have seen in recent legislation from an EU perspective. And that is there for one simple reason. Companies don't have a will of their own. Companies are directed by its officers. And consequently, any failure is really and truly a failure of the board. And these realities today live hand in hand with good corporate governance. The message being sent to one and all, especially with the latest EU legislation, is clear. Failure in AML is not tolerated any further. This will incur severe penalties on a personal level. And therefore, good governance is not an abstract obligation, it is a practical and active obligation imposed on directors. But let's stop being abstract. What do we understand when we say a company exec has got to know his stuff? He's got to take action. Well, a company exec must ask some simple but basic questions. One, are my transaction monitoring procedures efficient? Do they meet expectations? Is my staff trained? Is my staff competent? Are suspicious transactions being reported timely and efficiently? Is my KYC on my customers, on my players, being done rigorously and consistently in all the jurisdictions in which I operate? Those, essentially, are the basic questions which every director must be asking on a regular basis. It is true that technology has helped. We have online identification verification systems. We have digital transaction monitoring. We have AI-driven compliance tools. But those tools assist the company directors and execs in their oversight. They will not substitute their personal obligation to perform. What next? Well, where does this take us and why are we here? I have assisted in a number of investigations at EU level. And it increasingly has become apparent that all the regulators, be they the gaming regulators or the financial intelligence units within the bloc, always look for proven track record of proactive governance. What is being said is that a director must be proactive, but must document also his or her involvement in the company. As young lawyers, we learn an old adage, which is verba volant scripta manent, which simply means the spoken word is volatile, the written word remains. And every action taken by a company director in escalating issues, in asking for reports from his or her team, in documenting failures, in reporting activity, in training staff, has to be documented, because that has to be shown to the investigative team. It doesn't have to be written, obviously, in handwriting. It can be digitally recorded, but it must be recorded. And this is key. Governance today plays a central role in gaming, especially so in gaming, it being considered a high-risk industry. Some say that compliance and good governance comes at a cost. It slows operations down, it increases your manpower, it increases your checks, and all this has a cost. Now, in today's world, compliance and governance should not be seen as a cost, but as an asset. Boards which believe that revenue and profits trump governance are exposing themselves to personal liability, personal criminal liability, and financial ruin. Remember, as I said, the responsibility placed on company execs is personal, and the penalties for failures include imprisonment, fines, disqualification to hold office or directorships, as well as great reputational damage. Boards who, on the other hand, invest in compliance and good governance and prioritize this emerge stronger. They emerge stronger because it will inevitably mean that these companies will find more partners to work with, including banks and financial institutions. They will be seen more sympathetic when authorities investigate any shortcoming, because no one is perfect. And they will increase their trustworthiness. Players and customers will trust them more because they are transparent, increasing revenues. The message I'm sending here is not all doom and gloom, and there's a lot to be said about governance. But remember this: whenever an investigation is launched, at least from a European perspective, the authorities are not looking at perfection in the actions of the director. They are looking at due diligence. They are looking for proven track record that throughout that person's office, that person has taken all reasonable steps to ensure that the company and its employees are falling in line with relevant EU legislation. Moving forward, as I said, this dichotomy between the criminal world using gaming platforms and regulators and states trying to limit that, the perfect balance is found in companies which engage in good governance. That is key. And on that note, I can conclude telling you that good governance today will ensure that the gaming industry is resilient, robust, safe, and above all, respected. Hopefully gaming will remain with us for long years to come. Thank you, and good afternoon.
Please put your hands together.